Shalom, my dear friends. Shalom and Shavua Tov. Today, the 23rd of the month of Mar Cheshvan of the year 5778, as we enter the last week of this very special month of Torah and spirituality, if we only know how to take advantage of it, corresponding to the 12th of November of the year 2017. And already we're looking towards the festival of Hanukkah, just 4.5 weeks away now. Baruch Hashem, this coming Saturday we shall be blessing the coming month of Kislev, month of miracles. And on Sunday we should be celebrating Rosh Chodesh Kislev, one day this year, with Hanukkah beginning on Tuesday evening, the 12th of December. Today in our kollel we have some very wonderful learning, looking at one of the three mother letters of Aleph Bet, the letter Mem, and then looking at one of the most beautiful and exquisite passages of Shir HaShirim as the beloved praises and depicts her beloved, and then more, God willing, from Likutei Moharan. And then today, just 2 hours and 20 minutes from now, at Israel time 18:30, I will be continuing my discussions of the subject of the ger that I began last week. This week, looking at sources in Rabbi Nachman's Likutei Moharan on the subject and some of the most amazing teachings that I have not seen collected in this particular way and expressed this way in any other source, although, as always, Rabbi Nachman has foundations for every statement that he makes in the all of our sacred literature. So that will be at 18:30 hours. But for now, we turn to our studies today, coming to the study of the letter Mem petuchah, the open Mem in the Aleph Bet. So with that, let us turn then to our study of the letters of the Aleph Bet. Shalom, today the 23rd day of the month of Mar Cheshvan of the year 5778, corresponding to the 12th of November of the year 2017. And today we come in our study of the laws of the writing of the letters of the Aleph Bet in the Sefer Torah, in Tefillin and Mezuzot, to the letter Mem petuchah, the first, the second of the three mother letters of the Aleph Bet, Aleph, Mem, and Shin. And let us first make a few general remarks about the form of the letter Mem, because we've already seen that there are a number of letters of the Aleph Bet that are essentially made up of different configurations of the letter Chof and the letter Vav. And when we look at the letter Mem petuchah, first let us make a comment about terminology. The Mem petuchah is the form of the letter in which it is written at the beginning or in the middle of a word. It is called petuchah from the Hebrew word petach, entrance or an opening, and the opening is between the two parts of the letter, the chof to the right-hand side and the very slightly angled vav on the left-hand side, which are joined with a extension of the roof of the chof out to the vav, and the vav is called in Hebrew the chartum, the beak of the letter. Just like a bird has its beak protruding forth, so the letter Mem has its vav, altogether the vav known as the chartum. And we've already seen in our last session that the letter Lamed is made up of a Chof and a Vav. And we also noted that the same is very nearly true of the letter Kuf. But the configuration of the Vav and the Chof as between the mem petuchah, the open mem, and the form of the letter at the end of the word, the mem setuma, the closed mem, is simply that the khartum, the beak, closes shat in order to form the mem setuma, satum being the Hebrew word for something that is closed up. So we can see also that these configurations of various letters to make up other letters can be represented by the junction of a chof and a vav, but also the mem is the mem stuma, the closed mem, is sometimes defined as being two dalets, one on top and the one basically flipped over around, so that the two dalets intersect to make the mem setuma, and so the connection between the letter dalet and the mem, kabbalistically, is bound up with the fact that the letter dalet, which has the Hebrew connotation of pur, the one that is dal pur, or as the Tikkun Zohar stated, deles le megarma klum, she does not have anything of her own. The dalet is waiting to be filled, and the dalet therefore corresponds to malchut, the 10th of the sfirot, the one that receives the influence from the other sfirot above her, while the mem stuma is two dalets just put together, and this makes up the letter that corresponds to the attribute of bina, understanding. So we have mother and daughter in the dalet and the mem stuma. But today we'll be focusing on the form of the letter mem petuchah, learning now from the laws of the mem petuchah as they are brought to us in the Mishnat Sofrim of the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Yitzchok Kagan, in Mishnat Sofrim, the laws of the letter mem. The mem petuchah begins the Chofetz Chaim here. The mem petuchah, its form is somewhat like a chof and a vav. We shall presently be remarking on a specific difference between the chof as it's found in the mem and a regular chof at its bottom right-hand corner, which is squared rather than rounded. But in the mem petuchah, the form of the chof is recognizable in the curvature on the top right-hand corner of the roof. However, writes the Chofetz Chaim, down below the letter must specifically be squared and without a heel. If it had a heel, it would be looking somewhat like reminiscent of a letter bet that had a vav tacked onto it, and it must not have it must be squared specifically to distinguish it from the letter samach. The letter samach is easily confused with the letter mem, because the samach has both its upper right hand and its lower right hand corner curved. Here on our screen, we don't quite see the full curvature of the right hand lower side of the samach. But to distinguish the mem from the samach, one of the main ways of distinguishing it is specifically with this mandatory square at the bottom. And in this way, the mem also is distinguished from a letter which is somewhat reminiscent of the letter tet, where in the tet, the chof is specifically, as we already learned, curved on the bottom right-hand side, and the tet is made up of a chof with a zayin, whereas mem is made up of a chof with a vov. So continuing now with the Chofetz Chaim's laws of the form of the letter mem, he tells us that the upper roof of the letter has to be horizontal, and it must not be curved except at the right-hand side. Now, also the roof of the mem has to be sufficiently long that it reaches above to the end of the base of the mem. And as for the khartom, the beak, it's also interesting that the word khartum in our Torah is referred to the sorcerers and magicians of Egypt, although the Hebrew word for a beak is a khartom, but the khartume Mitzrayim are the sorcerers. Perhaps there is some profound significance in this terminology, but the khartom, the beak of the mem, should be actually extending forth so that the head of the vav of the khartum is aligned to it's on the same alignment as the roof of the chof, with the exception that the vav, as we see, is very slightly angled in order to create the separation between the vav and the base of the chof. And this separation, this space, to keep it as a mem petuchah, is absolutely essential in the writing of the mem petuchah, the open mem, in order to keep it distinct from its sister letter, the mem stuma, the closed mem, as it is written at the end of a word. The gap between the lower leg of the khartum, the vav, and the base of the chaf is completely mandatory. So, to continue with the laws of Chafetz Chaim, the scribe must make absolutely certain to connect the khartom, the vav, at the top. It's only at the bottom that there is to be a gap, but at the top there is to be a narrow extension of the roof of the chof to hit the back of the vav. And there must be above a break. In Hebrew, this is called a pagam, a flaw or a slit, a nick between the left-hand end of the roof of the chaf and the right-hand side of the roof of the vav. So, as we have mentioned, the form of the khartom is that of a vav that is standing up, and it is very slightly angled, but not too much. And the khartom, the leg of the vav, should reach all the way down to the same alignment as the base of the letter chof, of which the mem is made up. And the scribe must be, as we've said, extremely careful not to let the base of the vav in any way touch the bottom base of the chof. For if the gap between the two were very great, the vav would be angled too much, and this is also not desirable. And if the scribe fails to connect the vav, the khartom, the beak, and the top of the chof, then this is two separate letters, a chof and a vav, and that is not the form of a mem, and therefore it will be pasul, it will be invalid. Now, in such a case, if the scribe had erroneously not connected the top chof with the top of the vav, if he was writing tefillin and mezuzah and had gone on with what he's writing, he would not be able to go back and correct that. Once the letter was wrongly written in tefillin or mezuzot and the scribe had gone on, he would not be able to correct that. If he had not yet gone forward, then he would have to, he couldn't simply erase the vav, he would have to deface the whole form of the letter and write it afresh. And this would apply also in a Sefer Torah. If he'd written a Sefer Torah with the letter wrong, even if he'd gone forward, or if the error was discovered afterwards, this can, in a Sefer Torah, be corrected. It's only in the tefillin and the mezuzah that we require the letters of the portion to be written kesidran, in their proper order, as they're written one after the other in the Torah, so the scribe must write them. But that is not the case in a Sefer Torah. So likewise, the same issues would apply if the scribe had erroneously connected the bottom part of the vav with the base of the chof, and the same principles would apply in correcting it. He cannot just scrape away the ink connecting the base and the letter, the bottom of the vav, because that would violate the principle of chok toichos, of not creating the letter by engraving, chiseling out the white around it to create the blackness of the letter. The letter must be specifically written and not chiseled out to stand in relief. So with that, my friends, we complete for today our study of the Hebrew letters, and after a brief interval we'll come on to look at the next most beautiful and exquisite portion of Shir HaShirim, begins to but in just a few minutes now. Shalom again, my dear friends, and here we are ready now to go on to the next part of our studies today, coming to one of the most beautiful sections, if it's possible to say such a thing, because Shir HaShirim is also very beautiful. Shalom, today, the 23rd day of the month of Mar Cheshvan of the year 5778, corresponding to the 12th of November of the year 2017. And today we come to the study of Shir HaShirim, one of the central portions. Dodi Tzach ve'odoim, my beloved is radiant and ruddy, starting at chapter 5, verse 10, going through to verse 16. And here we can see now the text of this parasha, which in the Hebrew text is a continuation without a break from the previous section. The Chashukah, the beloved maiden, had been asked by the daughter of Jerusalem what is so special about her lover, and what is his uniqueness. And it's at that invitation that the beloved begins her praise of her beloved. Now, we have already seen the praises of the lover by the beloved at some points in Shir HaShirim, but as we noted in a recent session, there's actually more praises of the beloved, the maiden, by her lover in Shir HaShirim than the other way round. As we've seen, much of Shir HaShirim is made up of the praises of the beloved by the lover. But here in this section, it is the beloved that begins to praise her lover, the one that she loves. And here, as we see, she's going to go down his beautiful form, describing it with exquisite attention in the mashal to every aspect of his great beauty. And here we see in our Shir HaShirim, in our Mikra, our Tanakh, an expression of the delineation of what in Hebrew is called a partsuf. The concept of the partsuf is very central to the Kabbalah, because the different aspects and the different levels of godliness, as they manifest corresponding to the form of Adam, the form of man. That is to say that although the physical human, as we know, the human in his physical or her physical form is a partsuf, the outer physical form of the male and the female are alluding to spiritual aspects which may be applied in order to express the different facets of divinity. And we see in the Kabbalah, the main partsufim with which the Kabbalah deals, there are many different partsufim, many different appearances, visages, personae through which godliness is revealed. But there are the essential partsufim are the partsuf of Atik, the ancient one, the far distant one, that is the keter of the whole of Atzilut, the keter of the keter, the crown of the crown. Then there is Arich, known as the long visage, that is the keter itself. In other words, Atik is the keter of keter. If each partsuf is itself divided into sfirot, so Atik, the top of all of the partsufim, is the keter of the keter, and Arich, the long visage, is the keter of Atzilut, followed by Abba and Ima, wisdom and understanding, which correspond to the second and third of the sfirot on the tree, Chokhmah, Abba, father, and Binah, Ima, understanding. And Abba and Ima, through their zivug, through their interactions, they generate the revelations of the one known as Ze'er Anpin, the small face, the small persona, as opposed to Arich Anpin. Ze'er Anpin is corresponding to the Sphira of Tiferet, which itself is composed of and encompassing the six main Sphirot of creation, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. And the Parzuf of Nukva, or the Bat, the daughter, that is the Malchut, who is receiving the blessings from all of the higher Parzufim and is interacting with the higher Parzufim in different ways through her being built up and coming successively closer and closer to being face to face with Ze'er Anpin until we have the giver and the receiver face to face as a couple. So here we see in our section of Shir HaShirim an evocation of the Parzuf of Ze'er Anpin. The Parzufim of Atik and Arich are completely not revealed, and what we speak about with regard to the Parzufim of Abba and Ima is also highly elusive, only by way of mashal. The Torah is far more explicit on the details of the Parzuf of Ze'er Anpin, who is depicted with the different manifestations of the different attributes of kindness and gevurah, strength, beauty, harmony, tiferet, netzach, victory, hod, majesty, and yesod, the foundation. And we see these aspects alluded to in a way that transcends the Kabbalah and comes right down into to all aspects of creation, giving us a mashal through which to connect with the Almighty. So we have available through the Sefaria library, we have available the English text and translation of Shir HaShirim, and I do urge those of you who want to have the text in front of you to take advantage of the sefaria.org library. And we have both this and what we will be particularly studying today, which is the Metzudat David commentary on this section of Shir HaShirim. So to advance now, going from chapter 5, verse 10 of Shir HaShirim, looking at the commentary of Metzudat David, Doidi tzach v'adam, my beloved is radiant and ruddy. It's as if now she is answering to the daughters of Jerusalem, yes, indeed, it is not possible to compare any of the other beloveds, any of the other so-called lovers, to compare them with my beloved, Doidi, my beloved. Because my beloved is radiant with whiteness that is mixed with the color of ruddy redness, and this particular blend of the healthy look of the complexion that is both fair and ruddy. This is particularly desirable to the eye. Now the nimshal is, and here we see Metzudat David delicately alluding to the Kabbalistic mysteries in our portion, that is to say that the Holy One, blessed be He, who is called the place of the universe, enacts and practices both rahamim, compassion, and din, judgment. Because the clarity of the whiteness of the complexion indicates the aspect of kindness and compassion, whereas the ruddiness alludes to the aspect of stringency, of judgment, of din, as is well known. And it's as if our text is saying here that in His hand, the hand of God Almighty, the hand of God as revealed through the Parzuf of Ze'er Anpin, everything is in His hand, both the side of compassion, the right-hand side, and the side of din, the side of judgment, the left-hand column, as they're joined together. However, she is implying The Sarei Malo, the angels above, the heavenly angels, will neither bestow any benefit on people, nor can they do any harm to people in themselves. That is to say that in themselves, the angels above who bring down the shefa, the blessing to the nations of the world and to creation, the 70 Sarei Mala, they are not susceptible to prayer and entreaty in the way that God himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, is susceptible to receiving our prayers. We must pray only to God and not to the angels, because they can neither benefit nor can they harm of themselves, because they are simply the emissaries of God, who is called the Makom, the place, the source of all of the universe. And the description continues that Doiditzach v'Adam, my beloved, is clear and ruddy. Dogul mervovo, he is bedecked with a flag of dogul means somebody that is particularly distinguished, mervovo, out of 10,000. He stands out completely out of all of the other masses. Now, the allusion here, says the Metzudat David, is that he has flags, that is to say, contingents of the gathering of the many tens of thousands, that is to say, of his emissaries and angels. So, Dogel Meravovo, he is bedecked, as it were, by these tens of thousands of his angels. The Nimshal here is to say that very many are his angels who carry out his word, his instruction. As it says here in the book of Daniel, Elef Alfini Shamshune, thousands of thousands are ministering to him. They say millions are ministering. V'rava, there are multitudes upon multitudes. Kadamohi Yukumun, they will stand before him. And that is not the case with the Sarei Malo, with the angels above, none of whom has this. None of whom are attended by the same ministers. So the verse in Daniel is in Daniel chapter 7, verse 10, where also the Partsuf of Zeir Anpin is being evoked. Continue now with chapter 5, verse 11. Roshoi Kesem Baz. His head is the finest of fine gold. The two words kesem and paz are two of the names given to gold in different parts of the Tanakh. There are a variety of different terms for gold used in different places, but the terms kesem and paz, as defined by the Metzudat David, is the finest of gold. And the expression here also parallels Daniel chapter 10, verse 5, where the term ketem upaz is brought, and ketem upaz is related to our verse here in the Hebrew of Shir Hashem kesem paz. This is a very fine gold, says the Metzudat David. It is as if she is saying, there's no need to place upon his head a crown of gold, for his very head itself is so beautiful and so shining, just like the finest of fine gold. The Nimshal is to say that it's impossible to relate the power of the power of his greatness, because he is elevated above all blessing and praise. Kevutzoisov taltalim shechoires ka'orev, his kevutzot, the locks of his hair, are like taltalim. The Hebrew word taltalim is related to the Hebrew word tel, which is a mound or a hill. And his locks and curls are banked up, curls upon curls, like hills and hillocks. His hair, says the Metzudat David, are mesul salim. They are curled, and because these curls change around in the nature of curls, sometimes they go in, sometimes they go out. That's why they look like hillocks upon hillocks, mounds upon mounds, and they are dark like the feathers of the raven. And the black locks of his head, this is an attribute of beauty. And the nimshal here is to speak about the wonders of the influences that come down from the Almighty, which, because they change around, the different influences. Sometimes there is kindness, sometimes there is severity. They change around from revelation to revelation. This is the nature of Ze'er Anpin, that the different attributes are constantly being modulated and entering into new configurations. But Tachbuleisov, through the Tachbulot, through the stratagems of wisdom of the Almighty in his governing of the world. And they are hidden from the eye. They are hidden away in dark, hidden away from the eye of man, because it's impossible to grasp the real meaning of God's providential ways in the world as we know it now. And the allusion comes to the feathers of the raven because something that is dark, is black, is dark and concealed from the eye. Well, now, in the Kabbalah, we do see that the hair of the Partsufim, particularly in the case of Arich Anpin and Ze'er Anpin, is a subject of a very great, dealt with a very great length, particularly in the Holy Zohar, in the portion of Nassau, in the book of Deuteronomy, and also in the portion of Nassau in Bamidbar, and also in the portion of Ha'azinu in Deuteronomy, where there are extensive portions known in Nassau as the Idra Rabo, the great assembly in the Idra, the place of the harvesting, the place of the granary, and in the Idra Zuta, the small Idra of Deuteronomy, where the two Partsufim of Arich Anpin and Ze'er Anpin are evoked and discussed according to the difference between their hair. And the hair of the Partsuf of Ze'er Anpin is specifically black, as opposed to the hair of Arich Anpin, which, as depicted also in the book of Daniel, is white like snow, like that of an old man. But the darkness of the hair of Ze'er Anpin indicates the attribute of Gevurah, the attribute of strength and power and severity that is particularly manifest through the emanations that come from Ze'er Anpin. So our text continues with the discussion of the Metzudat David. On chapter 5, verse 12, Einov Kayonim, his actual eyes are like yonim, like doves. Says the Metzudat David, the looking forth of his eyes has the same beauty as the way that the eyes of the doves have this beauty when they are standing by the streams of water and looking there to quench their thirst by these waters. And this is a particularly beautiful look, the charm, the enchantment of these eyes, the seductive charm and attraction of the eyes of his hashgacha, of his providence. Roichatzois b'cholov, they are washed in milk. The whiteness of his eyes is clear and is shining and clean, without being able to find any trace there of redness, the redness that comes into the eyes with age and with the stress and the strains that come on the body. But the eyes of a vibrant youth are white, as if they're constantly being washed with milk. And there they are, yoshvas al miles, they are fixed there in the eyes, each one in their cavity, exactly according to the measure of the cavity, to fully fill the cavity of the eye. That is to say, the eyes are not standing out, nor are they sunk too deep, and this is also something of great beauty. And the nimshal here is to say that the Almighty is constantly providentially watching with a look of love and a providence of judgment that is sweetened with kindness, because the whiteness of the milk indicates kindness. Milk in Kabbalah is a remez to, an allusion to kindness and compassion. And the hashgacha itself, the providence itself, is in an intermediate manner. That is to say, it's always a balance between the right-hand column and the left-hand column. The concept of balance is absolutely integral to the partsufim, but particularly to the partsuf of Zeir Anpin, which is associated with Tiferet, which is itself balance and harmony. Even though he is exercising his providence over everything, nevertheless, when it comes to a bad thought that a person in the world may have, God does not providentially consider this thought in such a way as to punish the person immediately for it. As it says in the Psalms, Oven im ro'isa belibi le'yishma Hashem. If I were to see any iniquity in my heart, then surely God would not be listening to me. So that verse is in Psalms 66, verse 18. So in other words, the verse in the Psalms is saying that if a person was aware that they had some iniquity, they would know that God is not, as it were, listening to them. Of course, he's watching and hearing everything, but not listening in a providential way, because out of his compassion, he, as it were, turns aside from a person's bad thought unless the person degenerates into bad action. So continuing in chapter 5, verse 13, L'choyov karugas aboisim. L'choyov, his cheeks are like the arugat abosim, like a bank of fragrant herbs. Says the Metzudat David, his cheeks and jaws are of the utmost splendor, and they seem to be, they can be compared to be like the banks of plants where the fragrant herbs sprout, and these herbs give particularly beauty. The fragrance of his cheeks give them exceptional beauty, and these banks of flowers and herbs are further defined. Migdalos merkochim. Migdal is a tower, and these are tower of the perfumes of the perfumer, because in those banks of fragrant herbs. They are growing the most precious of fragrant plants in order to act as composites, making up the compound that the perfumer produces in order to keep it protected and preserved for a very long time. And then these banks, these are in their utmost splendor on account of their form. That is to say, the way that these banks of herbs are arranged is itself beautiful. And then from the aspect of the very choicest of the herbs, choicest of their kinds, which are sprouting there, which are blossoming and bursting forth there. So the nimshal here is to say that the words which come forth from the mouth of the Almighty, that is to say the Torah, the words of the Torah which are coming forth from the Partsuf of Ze'er Anpin, because the Torah itself, as revealed in our world, is actually the manifestation of Ze'er Anpin. The Torah is the Partsuf of Ze'er Anpin. So the words of the Torah are precious and filled with wisdom and have the utmost benefit. And the illusion of the lechoyayim, the jaws or the cheeks, comes here because it is the jaws and the cheeks that actually encompass the vessels of speech. That is to say, there are Kabbalistically the 5 exits of the mouth, the 5 parts of the mouth from which speech emerges: the garon, the throat, the ayin and the aleph, the hey. The letters that come forth from the back of the palate, the chof, the yud, the gimel, and some other letters. There is the tongue itself, which forms the lamed and the dalet, and there are the dental letters, and there are the lips, and these 5 exits of the mouth with which we form the letters. These are encompassed by the cheeks and the jaws, and that is why it is appropriate that the words of the Torah encompassed by the lechayim should be alluded to by this phrase. Going on now, sifsoisav shoshanim, but his lips are shoshanim. They are like the beautiful lilies, roses. Says the Metzudat David, from between his lips there arises a good fragrance, like the fragrance of the shoshanim. It's as if his lips are dripping with the fragrant myrrh. And here the reference, the nimshal of the lips, is to the Nevi'im. The Nevi'im, who are associated with the Sfirot of Netzach and Hod, which is also alluded to in the aravot of the 4 kinds, the willow leaves, which take the shape of the mouth. These lips are alluding to the prophets who, within the encompassing the choyayim, the jaws and the cheeks of the speech of his mouth, the prophets are specifically sent with their particular messages. These are the emissaries sent from God to speak forth his words, and they are like shoshanim, like the lilies or the roses whose fragrance wafts far off. So because they inform us what is going to take place at the very end, far before the events happen. They're already from afar off, just like the fragrance wafts very far, and they are the words of the prophets are laying down a ya'ad, a goal that is to say, the ultimate goal of God's providence is to bring abundant good and constant success through our service of him and his return to us. So we're coming down step by step down the Partsuf, chapter 5, verse 14, Yodav Glilei Zohov. So a Galil, the Metzudat Tzion, which is the parallel commentary to Metzudat David and Metzudat Tzion, where he defines the meanings of the Hebrew words, he says that the Galilim, are the wheels of the Merkava. The Merkava, the chariot, just like in Book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 10, it refers to Galile Kesef, the wheels of silver. Here the wheels are of gold. Well, these wheels, of course, we must not imagine these wheels physically. We must imagine the concept of the Galil as alluding to aspects of the divine providence. Says the Metzudat David 5:14, Shir Hashirim, the fingers of his hands, when they are separated one from another, are similar in their appearance to the arms or the spokes of wheels of gold. That is to say, they are clear and pure, just like pure gold. And even though the heads of the fingers, which are the instruments which he uses to accomplish his desires, and the edges of the fingers are likely to be in contact with physical reality and therefore to become dirty. In his case, Yodav Galile Zohov, they are these pillars of gold, Memuloim b'tarshish, and they have a filling of tarshish, being a very precious gem. Says the Metzudat David, within these glilim, which he says are the fingers, as it were, through which the wheels of providence are operated, within these fingers are sitting Avnei Tarshish, the stones of Tarshish, according exactly to the measure of the cavities. They, like the eyes, they neither bulge too much outwards, nor are they sunk too deep. And this is referring to the fingernails, the tzipornayim, which are beautiful and smooth, just like stones of Tarshish. And they are exactly like the fitting measure, neither too short nor too long. And the nimshal here is like the nimshal is referring to the galgalei hashomayim, the spheres of the heaven, which are the work of the fingers of his hands. May he be blessed. As it is said in Psalm 8, when I see your heavens, the work of your fingers. So here the allusion in the Galile Zohov is to the wheels of providence, which are bright and precious like gold, filled with radiant stars of light. And they are me'ein eshes shein, they are like a piece of ivory. The word eshes, Metzudat Tzion defines as clarity and brightness. And the term eshes is sometimes used of a hunk of metal that may be gleaming. His me'ov, the me'ayim, which are the abdomen and the belly, the me'ayim or eshes shein, they are a smooth and gleaming work like ivory. Says the Metzudat David, bitno, the beten, going now down to the lower part of the partsuf, which is coming to the sfirot of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. The beten is zach ubahir, it's pure and bright, like the purity of, like the brightness of the ivory of the elephant, the tusk of the elephant, as it would appear when it would be covered over with sapphires that are fixed in it. Because the The verse is going to continue with the Mu'ulefes Sapirim. The expression Mu'ulefes Sapirim, it is garbed in and veiled in sapphire. For then, when the ivory is visible through the sapphire, then the gleaming of the sapphires falls upon the ivory and causes it to shine more than ever. And the nimshal is to say that the heavens of the heavens belong to God. But even so, with the fact that the heavens are the heavens belonging to God, he has desired from long ago to have a habitation for himself over the kaporet, that is the cover of the Ark of Testimony in the sanctuary, which is the innermost place. That is to say, the bright ivory is covered over the sapphire, so likewise his dwelling place over the ark is a place that is within, deeply concealed, just like the me'ayim, which are the innards, the intestines inside the body are hidden away. And it's precisely out from that level that comes forth a radiation to the assembly of Israel, which is bright and pure like ivory with the shining whiteness of the sapphire. Continuing, chapter 5, verse 15, Shoikov Amudi Shesh, his shokayim, which are the lower part of the leg, Amudi Shesh, they are columns of marble. It says, Metzudat David, his legs are beautiful with their whiteness, with their straightness, just like columns of stone, of marble, and they are founded upon foundations of purest gold. And those foundations of these columns, these are the soles of the feet, which are clean, just like the most precious gold. Even though the way of the feet is to be treading on the dust of the earth, which may make them dirty, but here they are clean and pure as gold, allusion to the purity of the divine attributes that are manifested through the Sphira. Here the Nimshal refers to the lowly world, which is the part of creation with which the legs of the Partsuf, namely Netzach and Hod, have their connection. The lowly material world in which we live is the footstool of, as it were, the legs, as it were, of the Almighty, blessed be He. As the verse goes, V'ha'oretz hadom raglai, the earth is the footstool of my legs, so says the verse in Isaiah chapter 66, verse 1. That is to say that the earth and the attributes of God that deliver the emanations to the earth, they are strong like columns of marble, and the foundation of the globe of the earth, the foundation that makes the earth stand in its place without moving either to this direction or that direction out of any of the directions. The foundation of the earth is compared to finest gold. And this is referring to the innermost point of the globe of the earth, which keeps the center point of the universe, as far as we are concerned, the point around which Earth revolves and which is the force pulling everything towards it. This is keeping the globe in its place, as the scientists have shown through their investigations, because every yesod, every foundation, is always yearning for its foundation. That is to say, on a lower level of creation, there is the ninth of the 10 aspects manifested on that level, the yesod, the ninth sphira. And on a lower level, the yesod of a lower level is actually longing to be reunited with the higher level from which it emanates, the yesod of the higher level. The lower yesod is yearning for that, and that is why the illusion comes through the expression of paz gold, because this innermost center of the physical universe is extremely slight and small. Here the Hebrew word in kat is katan. It's the merest, slightest point that is the very center point, just like paz, the finest gold, only very small quantities of which descended into the world, as our sages have said. So he continues, Mar'ehu kalevanon bachur ka'arozim. His appearance is like the Lebanon. He is choicest youth, just like the cedars. The appearance of his full stature is like Mount Lebanon, which alludes perhaps to the mountains of what is today called Lebanon, but more particularly to the Temple Mount, the Lev Nun, the combination of the Lev, the 32 pathways of wisdom, and the Nun, the 50 gates of understanding, all encompassed in the Temple Mount. The appearance of his stature is like the Temple Mount, and he is chosen over and above all of the other Dodim, all of the other Sarimal, or the supreme angels, but the Holy One, blessed be He, who is the Eloike or Elokim. He is the God of all of the powers. He is choice above them, just like the cedars, which are choicest above all of the other trees of the forest. And the mashal is to say that the Holy One, blessed be He, is great and exalted above all of the other powers. The word Elokim in the Tanakh is used of God, but it's also sometimes used referring to the angels, as in Genesis, the end of Parashas Bereshis, B'nai Elokim, the sons of the Elokim, the powers, the gods. And the word also sometimes refers to the judges. And here he's using this in the sense of the 70 supernal angels, which the other pagan nations of the world worship. But he, the Holy One, blessed be He, the Creator of the world, God Almighty, is far superior, choice above all of them, and He cannot be compared. It's impossible to compare any of them to Him. And she now comes to her conclusion in verse 16 of chapter 5. Chikoi mamsakim, what can I tell you? Achech, the palate of his mouth are sheerest sweet delights. That is to say, it says Mesudat David, all of the words coming forth from his chech, from the palate of his mouth, are sweet in their melitza, in their eloquence, the most beautiful eloquence with the clarity of his words. And all of his deeds and all of his movements are so charming and delightful, for everything is made with profoundest wisdom. And the Nimshal is to say that the words of the Torah that have been given from his mouth, they are righteous judgments and straight, just statutes, and all of his works are in kindness and in compassion. And she concludes, Zeh dodi v'zeh rei benot Yerushalayim. This is my beloved. This is my companion, you daughters of Jerusalem. She's saying, after all that, just look, the one that has these attributes these praiseworthy attributes. This is my beloved. This is my companion. It's as if she is saying, on account of all of the above, how could I not long and yearn for him? Is there anyone at all that one could compare to him? And the Nimshal is to say, you must know, all of the peoples, you must know the one that all of these attributes are encompassed in him. He is my God. It's as if she is saying to them, now you judge, please. You decide, is there anyone that can be, any level that can be compared to God Almighty? And what is this that you are saying to me all the time, to abandon him and to join with you, to come under the rule of the guardian angel in the heavens that rules over any one or other of these 17 nations? For all of them and any that may be like them are all as nothing in comparison with my God. And with that, we come to the conclusion of this most beautiful section of Shir HaShirim, after which the Bnei Yerushalayim will ask her, well, in that case, where is he? Where's he gone? And can we not go with you? So with that, my friends, we will now have a very brief interval, after which we will come back to our study of Rabbi Nachman's Likutei Moharan. Shalom, my dear friends, shalom again, and let us now come to the next section of our studies for today, concluding with a session of learning in Likutei Moharan, and we go back to Torah 33 in the first chelik, the first volume of Likutei Moharan, and Shalom, today the 23rd day of the month of Mar Cheshvan of the year 5778, corresponding to the 12th of November of the year 2017. And we continue now with our studies in Likutei Moharan, Chelik Aleph, the first part of the Hebrew Likutei Moharan, Torah Lamed Gimel, and we are beginning just at the end of section Hey, just near the beginning of section Vav. At the end of the section Hey, Rabbi Nachman summarizes the section that went previously and connects it with an idea that was absolutely integral to the Chassidut, the teachings of Rabbi Nachman, the importance in our lives of the phrase Na'aseh v'nishma, let us do and then let us hear, with which Israel accepted the Torah. He had been speaking about how the righteous individual who brings his Yetzer Hara, his lower material desires, under his control, he is able to strip off the veils that cover over the letters of Torah that surround all of creation. Initially, the person is working to make and to build the letters of the Torah. That is to say, through the person curtailing their instincts to relate to the world around as a material entity, there to serve their material desires, the person curbs their desires and sees the surrounding world and its situations as a divine creation. And through this they are making and building the letters of the Torah, which was scattered, hidden around in the world around them. And now the letters are standing forth in relief and getting joined together. So that is the first stage. Afterwards comes the nishma. We heard how the righteous are Oise devoroi lishmoa bekol devoroi, in the words of Psalm 103 towards the end, where the angels are described as Oise devoroi, they are doing his word in order afterwards lishmoa bekol devoroi, to hear the sound of his words. So after the work of finding the letters all around, one then begins to hear higher messages. Zachyon lemishma kolon milaelo, where they are worthy of hearing voices and messages from above. That is to say that the letters of the Torah that are in the surrounding creation receive vitality and light far more abundant than they received earlier. When they were garbed in the klipot, the husks, ideological husks of the languages and the belief systems of the nations, when the letters of the Torah were covered over because one experiences life as a succession of bad days. So at that time the letters were not radiating. As we saw, there was only just enough vitality to keep those levels in existence. But when the righteous individual curbs their material aspect and reveals the letters and puts them together, then the divine light can shine down to these low levels with far greater force, because the person has stripped away the letters of the Torah that now radiate to that person. And now Rabbi Nachman is going to take us forward in this great journey contained in this teaching. This is known. The Torah itself, That is to say, the manifestations of God's attributes in the creation, which comes through in time through the succession of days, each one with its own unique configuration, a divine influence. Within the Torah and within the attributes of God being manifested in creation, within the days revealed day after day, within time, there resides within them the love of God. May his name be blessed. Like it's written in the Holy Zohar, in the portion of Balak, and also in the portion of Bereshit. Psalm 42. By day, God will command his chesed, his kindness. This verse in Psalm 42 is darshaned in the Zohar, Shachesed hainu avo, the loving kindness, namely the love of God. We see the configuration of the expression love with the expression of chesed in the verse in Jeremiah chapter 31. Avas olam avticho, I've loved you with an eternal love. Al kein meshachtich chesed, and that is why I have drawn chesed towards you. That is to say that the primary mover of all creation and all revelation is love. And because of God's love for the world, God's eternal love, he has drawn down an influence of loving kindness into the world. And the Zohar darshans on this verse in Psalms, Yomam Yitzaveh Hashem Chasdo, that by day God will instruct there to be a revelation of his loving kindness. What is this reference to Yomam, the day, by day? Says the Zohar, Hu Yoma de Ozel im Kula Yomin. There is a day, a supernal day, a supernal attribute that actually goes with all of the other specific days. In other words, the Loas Firot, each one of them is called a day, but there is one supernal day that accompanies all of them, that accompanies all of the Yamin, all of the attributes. Because the different attributes are all contractions of his godliness. All in order that we should be able to apprehend him through the different manifestations of his qualities and attributes. It's written in the Zohar Exodus chapter, the portion of Bo. It's also that they should become aware and know him. If it were not for the qualities of the Almighty, it would be impossible to have any apprehension of him, because his divine light, without any contraction at all, without being refracted, would be beyond our ability to apprehend. He has therefore contracted his light. Because of the love which he has for Israel, he wanted Israel to be attached to him and he wanted them to be attached to him . They should love him from this very material world. For that reason, he has garbed his godliness in the attributes of the Torah. That is to say, in the coming passage, Rabbeinu Nachman is going to teach us that in all of the details of the mitzvot, there is contained contractions of God through which we are able to apprehend him if we will fulfill the commandments. And Rabbi Nachman has taken us on a journey to come from the love of God that is manifested in the revealed Torah to help us to apprehend the love of God that is contained in the concealed Torah. He's taking us on a journey similar to the journey he took us on in the Torah Tesvov, the Torah of the Or HaGanuz, the treasured up light, where we saw that we have to progress from the revealed to the concealed, from the Nigla, the Naaseh we shall do, to the concealed, the Nistar, the Nishma, that which is heard, that which is susceptible to understanding. So he is telling us here that the love of God is manifest in his Torah, and we shall be continuing to hear in the next section about how this our performance of the mitzvot brings us to experience this love. So with this, my friends, we conclude our session for today of our Kollel, and with the help of God, I will be back in just a little less than 1 hour for the next session, our weekly Shavua Tov hookup, when I'll be speaking about the concept of the ger as we find it in the writings of Rabbi Nachman. So with that, my dear friends, we conclude our Kollel studies for today, and shalom from Yerushalayim, and look forward to being with those who will be listening to my next class very shortly. Shalom.